What's up, guys, and welcome back to another podcast here on the ArchiTech Network. Today, we have a very special podcast. We are bringing on some of my favorite YouTubers to talk about the world of YouTube and architects getting more into YouTube. It's still a really undervalued platform for architects. And so today, we've got the infamous Steven Rubio from Show It Better and Oliver Uszkurat from UpStairs. Obviously, Oliver and Steven are massive YouTubers in the AEC space, and they actually gave me a bunch of advice when I was starting out in the world of YouTube, and that advice has really paid off over the few years. And so this is partly to share the knowledge with you guys. We had them on in the Clubhouse days, but I want to bring them on now so more people can see it now that we have a bigger audience. It's also somewhat of a celebration of us hitting our 10K milestone. We're now at 15K. So we want to say thank you to you guys for supporting, but also thank you to Oliver and Steven for helping me get into the world of YouTube. This episode is sponsored by London Build Expo. It's one of the first times we've had a sponsor for the podcast. We're teaming up with them for the Expo on the 20th and the 21st of November here in London. It's everything to do with architecture, engineering, and construction. It's one of the biggest events that we have here in London. And we're going to be teaming up with them to bring one of our infamous Pechakuchas to the event on the 20th of November. And we're going to be hosting that in collaboration with the startup company I'm working for, Facet Technologies, and the theme will be on the future of housing. So you can check it out in the link below and get a completely free ticket to come and join the expo. But without any further ado, as always, if you like this episode, give it a like and a subscribe, share it with your friends and colleagues so they can share this information with as many people as we can. Without any further ado, let's jump into it and speak to Oliver and Steven. This video is brought to you by ArchiTech Network and our online platform of courses where you can learn from world-class architects working in some of the practices that you can see in these videos. You can learn Grasshopper, Revit, Rhino Inside, Twinmotion, and some of our new courses on AI, and lots more courses that we're delivering over the next year. So please, if you like this video, check out our courses in the link below so we can keep bringing you more content like this. All right, that's it. We're live. Steven, Oliver, welcome back to the podcast, in this time in video format. I know you guys were the OGs of the Clubhouse days on ATN, and we're also completing the trilogy of being on each of our channels, which is super nice. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's been, a year since we last talked, so yeah, amazing to come back here and discuss more stuff.
Yeah, it's exciting how each conversation that we have, more or less like each year, kind of gets much more interesting because there's AI, there's more things happening. Ollie, you have a ton of your things, a ton of studio tours now on your channel. So, you know, each conversation just gets more complicated with more layers. So I'm excited to talk.
Yeah, I mean, last time we were talking about AI, I was still a big... A lot has changed in that time, huh? So yeah, I think it was a great time to get you on. I feel like you guys don't need much of an intro on YouTube, but if there's anyone on our channel that doesn't know you guys, I mean, we obviously have Oliver from UpStairs, massive YouTube channel, and Steven from Show It Better. Again, you guys are legends of the architecture YouTube space, and I think that the reason why I really wanted to get you on today was I think you guys were, I remember talking to you guys asking for a bit of advice on the world of YouTube when we were starting with ATN and, you know, wondering, would we go on YouTube? Would we just do online courses and all this kind of stuff? And you guys kind of, you know, pushed me, advised me down the YouTube road and like made me kind of see the light, which I thank you both very much. And we've just hit a massive milestone for us, which is our 10K, and now we're at 15K. And so I think it's kind of nice to close the loop a little bit and bring you on and talk about YouTube for architects and architecture, which I still think is a massively underrated thing. You know, it's still a niche. You don't still see many practices doing it. And so, yeah, I think it's really nice to get you guys on and talk about that loop. wanted to start with was like, obviously we have just hit the 10K. That was a huge milestone for me. I wanted to just talk to you guys about like, how did you get started? Like for maybe the audience that don't know how you got started, and maybe what were the big milestones for you, like the 1K, 10K, 100K, looking back, how did you get started and what were the milestones that really stood out?
Yeah, well, I remember when I created the Let's Show It Better at Gmail account, which was July of 2016. So it's more or less about 8 and something years ago now. And from July to December of that year, I uploaded more or less like, I don't know, 1 video a month, 2 videos per month, just on random subjects like how to erase your background, how to add trees into your renders, just random subjects to see what was going to happen, if anyone was going to watch it, if I had to share it amongst all my friends, if I was going to make any money from it. And I remember on December, I received my first like check, which I couldn't actually, use, but on AdSense, I saw the first check, which was like for $30-something, which was a super big milestone for me because I was like, I can make money out of this. I just have to make much more videos. And eventually, like 6 months went by, or like I think maybe 8 months, when I received the first $100 check, which at that moment came in through like the actual physical email. And that was like one of my biggest milestones. And then eventually, just receiving 1,000 subscribers was crazy to me. I think when I had 3,000 subscribers, Enscape reached out, like the OG Enscape reached out. Hey, we want some sponsored videos. I'm like, yeah, let's do it for sure. I was trying out a lot of new software, and then eventually it just became. I just became much more serious with it. It just became a job, and with each milestone, obviously you get super excited. But I think nothing beats the excitement of like 1,000 subscribers or like my first 1,000 views. I think that just feels so good.
Yeah, that's first 1,000 is actually one of the hardest.
Yeah,
so hard.
I didn't know that you started in 2016, Steven, because I swear I had it in my memory that I started the channel because I saw one of your videos and I thought, well, I could share something as well on YouTube. But now that you mentioned 2016, I went to look at your first video, which is 8 years ago. August 20th of 2016. And for some reason, my first video is November 27, 2015. So like almost a whole 1 year before you.
But serious? Okay,
but
yeah, you started.
I could swear that I started after you because I remember watching some of your videos and are you sure you didn't delete any videos or something? I swear you had like...
Let me just check. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm 1 year off. Let me just check. But I think it was 2016. Let's see, date oldest.
Well, the video is 2016, yours.
Yeah, that's my first video, August 2016. So I guess,
all right.
You
so
were inspired by someone else or something.
Maybe. But I started, I remember teaching some of my colleagues in architecture school. My school was really good for some things, but when it came to representation and visualization in general, it wasn't something that they covered. So the channel came after giving some workshops to some students and seeing that they didn't know how to do architectural diagrams of any sort, how to do simple, basic illustrations. And it was all CAD or basic SketchUp exports. And I saw the huge potential that area had, both on like for my peers at school, but then on YouTube, and how being able to express yourself in quality, like in having that flexible language of artistic language, as if you will, would benefit me highly in the final presentations of the year or of the professor's critique or something. And I could go better than my peers, not because I had a better project, but because I could better explain what I was thinking and what was inside my head. So at that moment, it clicked for me that the importance of this skill as an architect. And I saw that I could teach. I always had this interest in teaching. and this interest in YouTube as well. I've watched a ton of other YouTubers back in the day, and it's the main platform I use, and it's the main media of consuming that I do, far more than Instagram or YouTube. So I've always been keen to this side of YouTube. So why not like merge my intention, my willingness to teach with YouTube? But instead, different than Steven, I didn't start with that in mind, of like doing something right and then taking over, and the channel really taking over. I started just posting one video. I think it took me 3 months between each video at the beginning, something like that. I posted once every now and then, and especially because I was still in architecture school and I was juggling between here and there, and it wasn't something I had the practice of doing. But when the first 1,000 subscribers wasn't something that really got me. I think it was maybe when I started seeing more views, more constant views coming in. And I saw that people were commenting, asking questions. It was not so much on the number count of the subscribers, but more about the engagement of the community. And I only did this as a full-time job after it hit 100,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Yeah, which is something I couldn't think of nowadays. It was a different time, and it was a different position I was in. But it was when I hit 100K and launched the first course, which then gave me some revenue to work with, and then I could quit. At that time, at 100K, I was working as a junior architect in a small firm. So then I quit, and it was like 5x my monthly salary that I got from the first paycheck of the courses, plus YouTube, plus the packs, as I call it, the resources. And I saw maybe there's something here, and with more time, I can help more people and reach a lot more students around the world.
Yeah, I remember for me. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Go on, Steven.
I remember for me, it was similar in the sense that that I couldn't quit my job at the beginning. Like I started in 2016. I was already a graduated architect, but I was in a moment that I was unemployed. That I said, let's start a YouTube channel. But then eventually I got a job, which, had to pay for the bills and whatnot. But when I really got to just dedicate myself to only YouTube was more or less in the pandemic, I think, where I decided, hey, why am I still working in this if Show It Better is just so big, or I could just create so many more videos. So I guess, that was more in the pandemic, I'm more or less 4 years or 5 years in that it's solely been dedicated to Show It Better. But I had to work a ton before.
I made the switch at the end of 2019. I remember that in October, November 2019. So when I was ready to go all in and I had quit my job and I was starting to do videos, I was already working on another course by the beginning of 2020, which maybe all things aligned perfectly despite the huge
and that was also, I guess, the boom time for YouTube, because you guys probably didn't know it at that point, but the pandemic was around the corner and everyone's at home watching YouTube, and you probably saw some crazy growth. And it's always been like that. It's always been like when you're starting off creating a YouTube channel, you're like, why am I creating a YouTube channel if it's too late? All the good YouTubers were in 2012, or all the good YouTubers were in 2014, 2017. And right now, this year, I've seen so many good YouTubers from the start, just do so many good videos. I'm like, hey, it's still not too late to create good YouTube videos. But in my mind, I'm always thinking, I should have started much more earlier. A few years back. I look at you guys like, fuck, I should have started in 2016. That would have been epic. I officially started in 21. Right, that's where we registered the channel and all that kind of stuff. I think it was more 22 when I actually uploaded the first videos and, actually launched it. But I think there's two really good points there. One is the best time to start is now. There's never, it's not too late to start, particularly in this space. And two, Oliver, I think you raised a really good point of it's not really about the numbers of followers and all this kind of stuff. But one of the things I also love is seeing the comments and the interaction you get with people, particularly like courses. You get people that do them. We did that Grasshopper course years ago, and we had attendees from 80 different countries, which is crazy.
That's amazing.
And I always love at the start of the course, like, someone's in Africa. We got like someone in every continent: South America, North America, Europe, and that's the part I really love. But I guess the followers and subscribers is an indication that you're growing as well. It's hard to ignore it, but it's not everything, right?
Yeah, I guess it's not the main thing, but at the beginning it's sort of hard to imagine like 1,000, like 500 people listening to you. I'm like, wow, 500 people. And then once you like advance in the stage and get like 10,000 average views or 20,000 average views, or you have a video that has 100,000, 400,000, it gets very blurry of how, like the line of how many people are listening to me, or like what actual impact do I have. So things like the comments, things like the DMs, things like, hey, just like a normal message, like, hey, you helped me get through school. That's maybe much more impactful right now than seeing a number like you reached 500,000 subscribers.
That was one of my questions for you guys, is like, there are certain milestones that drive you a bit further: 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. Of course, you get the little plaque and all that kind of stuff. But you guys are out there at like, the 400K mark, and it's kind of like hard to wrap your head around it, because it's a crazy number, but you're also, that milestone is like, what is the next milestone,
It is a crazy number, but at the same time, it feels just as 200K or 100K, or obviously it's very different than 10K or 5K, because then you have a lot more reach. But if I start to think about too much on the numbers, I end up not posting as much. I think I usually try to focus on, am I delivering the best what I can do at the moment, without like being too on the perfect side, right? Refining too much and not delivering. And it's always about providing as much value as you can. The numbers, the returns will come, the views will come. But since YouTube is such a long game, you cannot think about the individual video per video structure. You got to think about how you're going to do this sustainably. For, as you just said, you've been doing this since 2022, like 2 years, and it's hard, right? It's something that demands a lot of your time. The returns don't come too soon. Eventually it pays off, but it's about focusing on what you can deliver per video and then moving on and building this community, instead of trying to hit a banger with every upload you do, because you're not going to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. Like, and different from other platforms like Instagram, where you upload like a reel and almost instantly, or like 3 days passes and you can see if it was a hit or if it converted or if you got a lot of comments. When you upload a YouTube video, some YouTube videos, I'm still waiting for them to pop off, because I know maybe in 3 years they're going to be recurring views, so it's going to be good. So YouTube is a long game for sure. And if you're thinking of, getting subscribers or getting a lot of views or getting a lot of money instantly, it would be the wrong approach. It would be more like, I'm going to be here for the next 10, 15 years. Let's at least upload one video per month and just wait to see what happens. And instead of being like, hey, I need videos, I need views right now, I need money right now, because if not, YouTube is not the platform to create content.
And you may think that 400,000 is a lot of people. It is, but if you compare to larger channels, because Steven and I, we talk to a niche like architecture, right? But it's a niche within architecture. It's like visualization, representation, it's software, it's Photoshop, it's rendering. So it's a very small bubble. I don't know if I don't have this milestone. Obviously I have, like, hitting 1 million subscribers. It would be amazing, but it's too far. So I don't think it's wise and healthy to be thinking about hitting that milestone, because maybe if you're a channel that talks about architecture but has burst out of this bubble, for example, Demi Lee, right? She talks to a broader audience, but still she masters the topic of architecture. So she can do that. But on the other hand, maybe since she's not too much in a niche, she doesn't have that bargain, that level of negotiations with brands or with an audience to do a specific course on a software or teach a specific thing or sell a specific digital product that maybe we as smaller-ish creators compared to her or others can. Well, stuff to think about, but yeah.
I've definitely already come across the power of having that niche. So, ATN, we're relatively small in the grand scheme of things, right? We're probably around the 10K area for the platforms that we're on. But I think we have a really good niche in terms of connecting people with technology, courses that you learn those things. Some massive pages that I've seen really struggle to do that. So there is something in having a niche. I'm curious, what do you guys think if you zoom out? And you mentioned Dami Lee and a few other kind of YouTubers. Obviously, Blessdark, we'll give him a shout out as well.
Definitely.
What do you see the architecture space in YouTube right now? There's a few people. Do you feel it's still underrepresented? There's way more people that could be in this space. What's your view on the architecture YouTube space right now?
Oh man, when I think about the actual YouTubers, because we can create Instagram Reels, we can create like Rashab that curates a ton of things, but the people that are just dedicated to creating YouTube videos and centered on YouTube, it's harder to find nowadays because a lot of people just want to go on the platforms that the content is much shorter, where the feedback is much more different. So when I try to analyze the whole spectrum of Archi YouTubers, it's not that big as if you analyze the ones from Instagram or the ones on TikTok or any other platform. They're very small YouTubers, but I always see them from the general category with Dami Lee or Stuart Hicks, which creates a ton of really valuable content, but for a general audience, down to the very niche ones like you guys would just create a very, very technical videos, like Balkan Architect, also very technical videos for a very small audience. And as soon as I see all the spectrum, I feel that there's so many things to cover that haven't been covered yet, which, sometimes I would love to do so many more YouTube channels. Like when I was starting out, I was in between creating Show It Better and creating a music channel, a music analysis channel. I just wanted to investigate on music videos and stuff. That was my path, but I was no, maybe architecture is much more into what I studied. But there's a ton of things that I would love to do, but it's just I don't have the time to do. But I know that there's a lot of theoretical architects on Instagram, which would fit really good on YouTube. Or there's a ton of really specific niches within architecture that I don't think a lot of people take the risk, just because when they post an Instagram reel, they easily get 1,000 views, but when they post an Instagram YouTube video, if you get 500 views at the beginning, it's a major feat. So I would love to see much more YouTube videos, much more YouTube channels. Just take a risk and do whatever content they want to do the most. Yeah, I don't know what you think, Oliver.
Yeah, I can think of, for example, Archi Marathon, a channel that's very specific about architecture, in a sense that it relates to every architecture student and graduate architect, that sometimes may not burst the bubble to the general audience because they're really good at what they do, right? They talk very specific in architecture slang, I guess, and to architects. Which is different than Stuart Hicks, for example, which then maybe goes more towards the Dami Lee side of YouTube, where they dominate, they understand completely what they talk about, but it also sparks interest in general people. that they're not really architects and all.
Yeah.
So, but Archimarathon has a smaller subscriber count, right? Although they create amazing content, they haven't reached so many people yet. And obviously the one and only 30 by 40 design workshop.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, right? He hasn't been posting for a while and has slowed things down, maybe. But his niche, although very specific, his type of channel, it's so aesthetically pleasing that I guess speaks to a broader audience as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I guess him and Dami Lee are the only like million plus accounts I can think of in the AEC space.
Yeah.
Do you think, so one of the things I've been thinking about is everyone that's in that conversation is really about educating and educating people about architecture. Even Dami Lee kind of educates non-architects about architects. What I still have not really seen, I've seen some very small channels have a go at it, and it looks kind of quite exciting, but I'm almost seeing like the next architect, for lack of a better term. Why are we not seeing people talk about projects on YouTube? And this is one, I know you guys sort of do this as well, because you got your own designs and things like that you present, and you also use that to educate. But I just feel like architecture practices are not taking YouTube that seriously.
Yeah, I've seen this, because I consume a lot of Spanish content on YouTube as well. And a lot of Spanish creators, like Latin-based creators, have really taken this to the next level. So there's like two specific creators, which is called Antonio Duo and Sofia Erfon. There's Mexican creators, and they have taken over YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I think they're younger than us. I think they graduated like 2 years ago, and they just started creating YouTube videos around, hypothetical projects. So it's just this house that they want to design. They show how they design it, what are the main reasons, then they show the renders. And then eventually, with all of that, all of the views they were getting, they got one or two clients where they actually built the houses. And right now they're like traveling all over Central America, like actually building their projects, just because they decided to promote it. And obviously they have since they're so young, they have a very a different kind of slang or different kind of language than we
Gen
do.
Z sort of approach.
Gen Z. We're much more technical. We're much more precise, but they don't care about, mentioning things wrong or not being too architectural with some things. And that helps them, of course, because it gets them to a general, much more broader audience that are just interested in them and their personality. So eventually when they want to create or participate in a competition or create different kinds of projects, they'll have a ton of eyes on top of them that obviously will support them. So I haven't seen it in English-based architecture channels, apart from Eric, which I think Eric, did a ton of videos, did some videos on architecture and specific like residential design, and then eventually got so many clients that he couldn't do any more videos. I don't know. That's what that's what I'm supposing, but I haven't seen any more than that. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe I don't know. I feel that architecture is such a demanding profession that, for one, it involves so many people in the process that in a YouTube channel sometimes always feels very personal, as you're sharing the story from your side of the things. And in architecture, like if you're building something that's in a larger building of some sort, like it's going to take 1+ years of designing, meetings and stuff, and then plus construction. Sometimes you don't even go to the construction is just handled by another team, and it's hard to showcase that in a good storytelling format that's fit for YouTube. So maybe that's why we don't see so many architects or architecture studios, firms in general, share that process, because it takes so much time, and there's too much boring stuff related there involved. But I kept thinking about for example, the channels of I opened here the local project or EST, like EST, where like they share a more tour of the place, sometimes mixed with interviews of often the architect or architects that were involved in the project, and those are amazing to watch. You learn a lot. You see a lot of cool footage, a lot of cool projects. But to make that happen, you need a portfolio that's really large to be able to, even if it's like one video a month, like who has 12 projects yearly in a small studio to showcase that?
Yeah.
So maybe that's one of the barriers.
Yeah, but I think it's also like a matter of creativity. Like I see some construction channels that like talk about how do you build a column, and then they do a whole 10-minute video on building a column. And a lot of people would be asking us, how do you create so many videos only around architecture drawings, or only around how do you create a render, which for us it is like an infinite topic. Like we could do like 10, 20 videos around different kinds of representations, and we would obviously learn different ways of creating it, of telling the story in different ways. So I think if different architecture offices like said, hey, there's going to be a special person dedicated to creating the YouTube videos, or if you're just a one-person team that has to create everything, it would be a nice challenge to do. And I think much more offices need to do it, and not just like wait to see if it works with other people, then I'm going to do it. But just like start doing it.
Yeah, I think I don't think you want to get into the habit of like, maybe you're doing real projects for YouTube. I think that the concept of like creating ideas and putting them on YouTube sort of as a way to bring them in, and then you can start documenting what's going on in the office and that kind of thing. The other point, which I think, Ollie, you mentioned, was like, I don't know how interesting it is for people that are not architects, but this is one that I really have, where like I've never met anyone where I go, I'm an architect, and they basically don't go, oh, that is so cool. Like I've never had anyone go like, oh, that sounds shit. So like people think architecture is interesting, and then also the kind of story from Big and how like the diagram thing started was, you know, Yarka would take friends to galleries and he'd show them models of buildings, and he'd really have to explain to get them excited. And once he started to explain, they got excited about the project. And so I think there is something in that, in like explaining your projects to regular people. I watch all sorts of crazy YouTube channels. Like there's one in the UK called he's called Asheville or something, and his job is literally like he does gravel, concrete, like a business like that, and he has a massive YouTube channel. Like the behind the scenes of an architecture practice, I think would be actually quite interesting.
And that got me thinking, because I don't know if you watch Colin and Samir. I know Steven does. It's a channel that talks about the creator economy. And for those watching right now or listening to this, if you're thinking about starting a channel, there's an amazing video about them that they just published a few months ago, Max. Yeah. Talking about the YouTube masterclass. So I don't know if the title is that correctly, but it's a 40-50 minute video that has everything you need to know to start a YouTube channel, and explain in depth on how long this game is and how you should prep yourself to embrace this journey if you choose to do so. And they talk in that video, but they always talk about that. And I've seen other creators talk about how YouTube is shifting to not showing a final product in each video, and not like the goal is not to show a finished product, but document the process and show the evolution of something and share your point of view. It doesn't have to be something definitive. So that got me thinking, because you're definitely right. I would be interested in seeing large firms documenting their day-to-day. This would be amazing to watch for an architect or someone outside of the field, for sure.
I mean, you may get to a point where you don't actually need to be having any real products, because you're creating these kind of, you know, super interesting visions. Obviously, people want to be building stuff and making stuff. That's the goal. But you could actually just make a living off fictitious architecture.
It's true. It's true. And like there's so many variations on what you can do being an architect. Like I remember, like now that you're talking about Bjarke Ingels and his form of storytelling, there's a YouTube channel. Maybe it has like 1,000 subscribers. It's very small, of an architect that analyzes the speech and forms of communication of different architects, which is, like super niche. So he is like 30 to 40 minute videos, which are very deep analysis on how Bjarke Ingels constructs an argument, how Rem Koolhaas constructs an argument, how, these very different architects, tell their stories and sell their projects, and they analyze like very different presentations, and they just show it like in a 40. It's very dense, of course, like 40-minute presentation, but it's just like the amount of topics that you can talk about as an architect is just so infinite that it's more like, what are you passionate about? I mean, like, of course, I could talk about things like that are much more clickbaity or much more into finance or things, but personally, that's not my passion. I love talking about drawings. I love seeing like visual things like graphic design. That's my passion. That's why I think Show It Better has performed well and UpStairs as well, because it just like we just breathe that. Like we really love what we talk about. But sometimes when you like chasing the money or chasing the views, it's very easy to fall off and just be like, hey, maybe this is not worth it, or this is not worth my time.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And I think that there's maybe a conversation there on the whole short format thing. I know you kind of touched on it there, and we've touched on it some other things, but like maybe it's worth talking a little bit about sort of two things, like other platforms and this rise of short form content. And as you were saying, I think, Steven, like you can post a reel and it can go crazy really suddenly. And also the effect of AI has had on this. And I've seen on Instagram, I think the biggest disruption we have seen from AI is actually marketing. And now architects have the ability to feed the incredibly hungry algorithm of Instagram, because they can generate images in seconds now instead of days or weeks, right? Which would be fast. And there was one that I came across recently. He's got 1 million followers in a very short period of time, where he like cuts bits of fruit and then he quickly AIs it. I forget what his name is called. Maybe Eric.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's crazy.
Do you think? Because I know there is like a YouTube long format versus short format. Like there's now YouTube channels that only do shorts and stuff like that. What's your view on these other platforms like Instagram and the short format? Do you think we're kind of, losing the essence of YouTube? Do you find Instagram and other these platforms like not really worth the time anymore because it's just about grabbing people's attention?
I don't know if we have the same thought on this, Steven, but
I think we do.
I see them in different places. It depends on what you want to get out of this as well. Instagram or Shorts or even TikTok, right? It's amazing to grab quick attention and get massive amount of views, but what's the quality of these views as well, and how do you want to convert them into something? If you're talking about displaying your design skills and then maybe grabbing potential projects, as Steven was mentioning about these two people from Mexico, right? I don't know. I feel that YouTube has much more of a format, a space to be able to explore that. It begins with a landscape format, but also with the type of the content that you create. Whereas in Reels, Shorts, TikTok, you're there for the click, and you're speaking to an audience that sometimes doesn't relate entirely to you. And I've seen so many creators talk about how hard it is to convert people from short media, short content to longer formats. And we've seen, especially with that channel I've mentioned, Colin Samir, they always bring data into the conversation, and we've seen more and more how YouTube has taken over Netflix and other streaming platforms as the main TV media consumption in around the world. But so if you think about that, like you're grabbing someone's attention for 20, 30 minutes, if you create a thoughtful, longer format video, what's the, like, how do you balance that between a shorter format where you're grabbing quick attention versus something that's longer, meaningful, deeper that you can, I think they both serve their purposes. It's not one or the other, but you got to consider what's on the balance there.
Yeah, I agree completely with Oliver. I think the format is completely different, and the way that you arrive to the content is completely different. Like when you open Instagram or open TikTok, you don't decide what you're gonna see. Like Instagram recommends it, but when you go onto YouTube, you get to decide and be like, okay, so I'm gonna watch this video while I eat my lunch. And if it's going to be a video on the office tour of Big in Copenhagen, then that was my decision. And I'm going to like the intention of the YouTube viewer is much more different than when you open your phone.
Especially on TV, right? When you sit down and click on a video, like you're most likely going to watch it. Yeah. Past half of it.
I never thought of it like that, actually. It's a really good point.
Yeah, but then again, it's not like a good versus bad thing. Obviously, it's just different terms of types of content. And when you start on YouTube, maybe that's why you get so enamored and you fall in love with the whole YouTube process, because the people, like the community that you create on YouTube, maybe it can still send you, give you some comments on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but the community that you create with recurring videos, with the people that comment there, with how that video converts onto, maybe if you're selling a course or just want people to get into your email list, is much more visible, much higher than the ones on 5-second videos or 6-second videos. But also on the other hand, like I see it as something that, I see myself much more as a YouTuber, but personally I see the creation of Reels like an exploration space for YouTube videos. So for example, when I want to create 10 YouTube videos, but I'm afraid that they won't perform, or spending 1 month per video is going to a big investment, and maybe it's not going to be as good as I thought. So I try to decide to make hey, let's make these 10 video ideas as shorts, as reels, and then I can create them really fast and see how people react to them. Hey, people reacted more to the how do you create an architecture project than to Enscape versus Lumion video. So I'm going to create a whole video, a whole 10-minute video on YouTube to that. And much more for me, it's much more like a testing ground than that I can transition onto YouTube.
You can validate the idea, right?
You can validate.
If you think about creating videos that they are evergreen, that they're not, well, some people call it cold ideas, right? It's not something hot that's going to die off within weeks. Just like you mentioned, there are videos that you're waiting to pop off. Because I see the YouTube catalog, the UpStairs library, and I think you see the same way, as an investment of time. It's something that I've built and invested time in, and I know it's going to generate views, clicks, and more for honestly years to come. Sure, the older videos are not good, and I cannot watch my first videos, so it's always a progress, right? Learning and practicing and becoming better at this skill that's no one has it naturally, but once you get the hang of it, it's something that you build, and it's depending on the niche. But for example, us creating videos on illustrations, diagrams, renderings, plans, whatever, is something that students that will get into university in a few years will come to the channel and watch and consume this catalog of content. So it's always also that. And so if you compare that to short format content, sure, nowadays you can see that Reels, sometimes I've seen one of my older Reels out of nothing, burst again and start receiving a ton of comments. But this is very rarely that happens, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's you gotta post every day, every week on Instagram to keep on the surface. Otherwise, you'll be forgotten. YouTube, not much the same.
Yeah,
that's the thing I think I really struggle with is YouTube. I enjoy the process, and I feel like the more I put into it, the more it gives back in terms of the audience, engagement, followers, like all of these metrics. Instagram, I just feel like I'm working so hard sometimes. And, we try and post like 3 reels a week, but that's not enough.
It's a lot of work.
That's not enough.
I don't enjoy Instagram, and like the whole Instagram, economics or whatever you want to call it. I have also really enjoyed LinkedIn. Actually, LinkedIn I think is mega underrated, particularly like in a professional environment. I think the connections I've got from that, and it's a little bit like YouTube. The more you interact, the more you grow. But yeah, the world of short format stuff, I find like really time consuming, and it's just like you don't get the reward from it.
Yeah, and I don't know if we answered the AI part or touched on the topic, but it's something. It's difficult, but this channel, some channels that rise powered by AI generated content, I don't know how sustainable that's going to be, because personally, when I bump into something, for example, I follow this account that talks about ArchiCAD and ArchiCAD tips, tutorials, and the BIM world in general, but specifically ArchiCAD, and they do some really interesting projects. But I saw that they posted a really good plan, very detailed, exported from ArchiCAD, which is what they do, and they're really good at it. And then it was sort of a board, like a panel, that had half of the plan and half was an image. And that image, wow, that's an amazing image. And then you looked into it and it was clearly AI generated. And if you look into the details, it was trash. Like you couldn't see past the furniture and the decoration objects and all. And that really got me, I looked at the project with second eyes, like thinking it wasn't worth that much praise I was giving, just because and I know it's not fair to think about that, but whenever I see content, we have so much feel as architects to create and imagine, and relying solely on the AI generated content. Sure, let's use it to assist us in the process, but the definitive call, I don't know, that's my take on this, but I feel that it has to be more personal, more unique to the channel, to the creator, and so on.
Yeah, I think it's so hard to talk about AI like day by day, because it just gets better, and the people that are working on it, like some professionals, are just out of this world, and they're imagining a ton of things. You've had a ton of them on your YouTube channel with the podcast, and I've heard the conversations, and they're really interesting conversations. So on one side, I do think like Oliver, like my head doesn't want to appreciate AI generated content as much as, hey, I made this by hand, I spent 5 days on it. Mentally, that's what I think. But I'm also aware of the fact that in 2 years, 5 years, the gap is going to get much smaller, much difficult to identify, or maybe the quality, the output is going to be just as good or maybe even better than what we do nowadays. So I've tried to create some AI videos just so I can learn about AI as well. And I know that it's going at a ridiculous speed, but it's hard to get over the fact that it's going this fast, and the results are that good that personally, I don't know what to do with all of that information. Like, should I create like AI generated content? Should I make the script of my videos AI generated, or should, if Premiere Pro comes with the whole AI generated options where I could just, create an image of an architectural office, in Dolly view, should I only use that? So those are questions that I'm asking myself every day, and I still don't know how to answer them, honestly.
And I guess it is the one that's kind of shaping your niche in the communication visualization. Like that's where it's kind of disrupting right now. So yeah, I think your outlooks on it are quite good. That you use it in the same way you use it to design. You use it as a collaborator and a tool, rather than just boshing out content because it's AI generated. But yeah, I feel like I've seen it significantly impact the world of Instagram, for example. The amount of architects I could name with like over 100,000, followers on Instagram is like a few, and they were probably like, the well-known Biarkas and all this kind of stuff. But now I seem to just come across like, not somewhat random people that only post AI content. And they have massive channels. So it's definitely an interesting one, but I think people still seem to react to the kind of classic YouTube, like the more you put into it, the more you kind of get from it.
But I don't know if it's going to be the 100% AI generated content is more of a newer trend. As I'm trying to compare like maybe 4 or 5 years ago when architecture profiles on Instagram were all about reposting. Like you could grow an account by reposting.
Yeah.
And it surfaced a lot of these profiles that were just about reposting your work. And then the more you submitted, the more they reposted, and you had a ton of hashtags to include in the remember that? It was something that, and I see some of these accounts nowadays that they grew over 1 million Instagram followers. And how sustainable that is in terms of like converting and actually speaking to an audience and engaging. Especially now with the whole changes in the algorithm of Instagram, where a post doesn't mean too much anything. A Reels is more what counts. The stories is hard to reach as well. So that shifted a lot. And I see now these 1 million plus followers account that can't get past 5,000 likes or something,
I've definitely seen that.
So I don't know if the AI generator is going to be something like that, and at some point it's going to be something that everyone, if you have some sort of understanding of technology, you can do that as well. So it's going to be not boring, but generic. So I use it, for example, in visualization. Instead of using an AI enhancer on top of it generically, you could use it, you could pass on it, import into Photoshop, and use a mask to highlight certain parts and enhance certain parts of the image with your own personal touch, right? Where like indicating where you want to add it. So I think combining those two are best bet, at least for these first years. As Steven said, I don't know how it's going to be in 5 years, but.
Yeah, well, I've also seen YouTube channels and a lot of content creators that, because of this amount and wave of AI generated content, or like how Colin and Samir says, like the Mr. Beastification of YouTube and of content in general, which is like instant content, which is like constant changes, like very fast, just so we can keep our dopamine levels up. A lot of the creators have geared towards the opposite side. So there's some creators like Life of Riza or like Van Neistat, which are just about creating very amazing slow videos that are very well edited, like very artistic, very like they have a very storytelling center, but they try to drift away from anything that seems AI generated, that's anything that seems generic, or that anyone can do it to just get a ton of clicks. So maybe that can also translate onto architecture, like instead of creating a ton of AI generated content, which is not necessarily bad, but if you're not, if you don't like to, get up on that horse and just follow the whole trend, then you can also go onto the other side and be like, hey, no, I'm just going to create like a normal hand-drawn plan, like David Drizzle does it. He's still with his hand-drawn techniques, and it's perfect. And I think, for example, his niche is never going to expire. Like the people who want to learn how to hand-drawn, even you can get the best AI tools, but that is going to be like forever, like present. So I think that's also an option, like not to follow it and just go to the other side.
I've said this in a number of podcasts already. I guarantee someone will have a massive channel doing artisanal architecture where they only hand draw. They'll have little tattoos of like a T square and a pen, like the coffee baristas, but it'll be architecture.
Yeah.
In a little leather, apron thing. I guarantee, mark my words, that's going to be a big channel.
It's funny how we start, whenever we go into this topic, we end up at this very same conclusion. I think it was the same place where we ended the last video we did together.
It was.
So it was a year ago. So yeah, maybe next year when we do the video again, we'll see if we're on the same place. But
no one's started the channel yet. No one's, we got to get
Start the channel.
Yes, come on. They're growing the beard. That's why it takes a while to grow.
Yeah, they're growing the beard. Yeah, for sure.
All right, maybe to wrap up, I think, you guys, hopefully we've inspired some new YouTubers today. What would you advise for, someone that wants to start a channel, how to get started, a couple bits of advice? What would you say to them?
You want to start?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'll do it. Well, if I were to start today, I wouldn't go all in at once. I would try to dedicate an hour a week, 2 hours a week, something like that at the beginning. Don't feel pressure of posting one video every week. This is insane. But start to see if you have the liking for this process, because you're going to have to like it. Otherwise, this is not for you. Creating videos, not necessarily being in front of a camera. You don't have to be. You can be behind the camera, showcasing something. But you got to like the process of creating videos. I would go to Colin and Samir channel, watch that masterclass that I mentioned, consume a lot of videos about the creator economy, see what you can do to get a head start. And something from that masterclass, they say that you should come up with 100 titles and thumbnails, like 100 video titles, video ideas, before even thinking about starting a channel. So that you have a catalog to pick and choose and go forward. Bigger YouTubers, they always talk about this, where they have a list on their phone and they always add titles and ideas to that list. Some even said you should add like 10 video ideas a day and do that for a month and see where it gets you. Because it's a skill. And you understanding the algorithm, doing videos, it's something that's going to take a while. Don't feel pressured on nailing the right video on the first try. The first 20, 30, 40 videos are going to suck. So don't feel pressured. It's about creating and getting out there. And be unique. Don't feel pressured on copying someone else's strategy. Do what it feels right to you, and it's going to work out.
Yeah, I would go towards like more cliche words, but that like are super relevant. I think when you start a channel, when you start something, you have to really ask yourself, like you have to be really self-aware of like, if you like it and if you're good at it, or if you have tendencies to be good at it, then maybe you're in the right path. Because, sometimes we make mistakes, or we may think that we like this topic, but when we're like 15 videos in, or we're like one video in, but you're 5 minutes into the edit and you're like, what am I doing here? Then maybe that's not the right direction, or maybe you just have to push through it thousands of times and be like, maybe, that's the way. So just like being very self-aware of like, what topic do I want to talk about? Is it because I'm an architect and I have to talk about architecture related topics, or do I love to talk about books, or love to talk about representation, or just architecture in general? If you're an architect, it doesn't have to be architecture, but it can give you a very, it can direct you to a market and to a niche that is much better than if you're talking to the general audience. Like if you want to talk about cameras, the niche is like the market is super saturated with people talking about tech and stuff. But if you want to talk about architecture and how they use tech and how they use cameras, then the niche just gets smaller and it may be much more precise to you. So just be very self-aware about that, and to not hide your personality in your videos. Like what people are much more interested in is like, who's creating this video? Like, why did you want to create this video? Why are you talking about this? Like, where are you from? Your accent, the way you talk about it, your video background, all of that is super interesting. And sometimes you see the biggest YouTubers and they have this perfect scenario, and we want to replicate that, imitate their voice or their cadence or their timing. And we lose, in that process, we lose our our essence, our character, and like just recently, just like in the last few years, I'll be like, hey, if people want to find out much more about me, then let me just show my face much more. Let me just talk about how Latin American I am. If I have animals, if I have certain sense of humor. I think that's much more important than if you want to create a video that's super generic and no one's going to be identified with it. So just show yourself as you are. And if that doesn't get views, then, are you in it for the views, or you just want to create like some good YouTube videos that you feel proud of? You're like, hey, that's a good YouTube video. I don't know.
Yeah, I think your guys' advice of like the first 20, 30 videos or whatever it is, just get them out there was that always stuck in my mind. I was just like, we're just going to put this out there and see what happens. And I think, loving the process. I'm not a big fan of the editing side, but like once I get to seeing the full episode, I'm like, okay, yeah, this was worth it.
You can outsource the editing, but if you don't know how to do it, how you're going to be able to hire someone and then see if they're doing a good job? I think you got to do it in the first place. And speaking of that, don't just push out videos for the sake of pushing out videos. It's not like quality over quantity completely. Sure, you should be putting quality into this, but it's better to have one good video every 2 weeks, like you guys are doing at ATN, than having 4 or 5 videos a week that feel very generic. That you're just recording and sending to an editor that maybe doesn't even know about, if you're doing architecture stuff, doesn't know about architecture, and it feels off. So I would go more into the direction of like something smaller, less quantity, but more higher quality than just putting 50 videos in 6 months and see how that goes.
Yeah, there's some videos that I spent, we've spent 1 month editing, or like 1 month creating, sometimes a little bit more. And you're like, is this even worth it? Like spending 1 month on one video that could probably get 10,000 views. I don't know. But when you do it, like, people recognize it, people recognize the effort, and eventually it performs super well. But eventually, like after the years pass and you want to show someone like, hey, what do you do? Like I create these type of videos. You show them that video. 1 month video and not the 5-minute video that you can create right now, but it's not full of that, that essence, that love that you did the other one.
And it will pay off. I just did a video where last year, 3 months working on it. Almost like that. The ultimate render engine comparison. It blew off like 500,000 views, and it was sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But it's not about it's something that I'm very proud of, regardless of the quantity of the views.
And you guys do great, amazing production in your videos. I have to say, like I'm still
thank you.
I'm still learning to get there, but I'm always
it's a process as well. It doesn't come. In the first year. Yeah, they didn't
teach us in architecture school. It's just like, sitting down, watching a ton of tutorials and be like, let's try this and let's try that. But it's hard for sure. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for your advice. Maybe to close out, I don't know if you want to let people know what's going on, where to find you. Of course, if you haven't already subscribed, go check out Oliver and Steven's channels. But have you guys got courses coming up, or let people know what's going on?
You go ahead, Oliver. Okay. Well, so if you want to find out much more about Show It Better, you can go type into Google or YouTube Show It Better, and you'll see all of our videos. You can also go to our website. We curate a ton of courses on architecture representation. We have courses on different types of things, and recently we're going to drop out a course on animating diagrams. So if you're interested, there's going to be a course on our website for that. And we also have a ton of resources, big resource library for architects that want to improve their drawings, mostly their 2D drawings. So if you want to download some resources, some free resources, you can go to showitbetter.co and just explore it and have some fun.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you haven't heard about UpStairs, you can go to learnupstairs.com, and then there you can find all the courses we have and packs, which are also resources to help you draw better, create better diagrams, and illustrate any of the architectural related illustrations, drawings, and all. we just released a new course on D5, which is the most complete course we have ever worked on. It's 11 plus hours of content, and you can go to the website, learnupstairs.com. You'll find everything there. And we're about to launch a new video, depending on where this comes out, talking about the course. So yeah, hopefully you get interested and subscribe to the channel as well.
There you go. I'm sure everyone's already heard of you, but yeah, thank you guys. I'll put a bunch of links under the video so people can find you. But yeah, guys, I really appreciate it. And you've converted me to a YouTuber, so hopefully you'll continue. We've converted a few people today, hopefully.
I think so. Yeah.
I think the amount
it's
of people
been a pleasure, Ollie.
The amount of people that reached out from our first video, I think on Steven's channel doing the portfolio review. Oliver, we did one like a year ago on AI. Like, people reach out about that all the time. So yeah, thank you for bringing me into the YouTube world. And yeah, I'm sure this won't be the last podcast we do together.
Yeah.
Hopefully in less than a year, we meet up again.
Yeah. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We're going to continue this YouTube theme with, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, Gediminas, who's a Swedish YouTuber that does like...
oh, yes.
Yeah, you might know him. He's like super casual, super fun videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to have him on, so we'll continue this talk around YouTube. But for now, guys, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see everyone in the next video.
Awesome. Thanks for the invitation, Ollie.